It was at this point that the mood in house would shift for the worst. The remainder of the night was spent holding each other. At that point, I wanted to tell her everything, but what difference would it make? It wouldn't bring her comfort. How could I tell her about the faceless children standing in the closet, or that corpse of a woman that shares her showers with her? It's like having the ability to see the worst possible outcomes before they happen. The average person would shimmer at the amount of spirits they come in contact with regularly, or better to say how many come in contact with them. You won't always know they are. Some just watch you, while others will attempt to touch you, while some will just stand over your shoulder and wait. The next morning was rough to say the least. The spirits were becoming more restless and I feared for our safety. She knew something was wrong because she could see it in me. Whatever was happening in the house was wrong, even to my standards. I was on edge all day. I knew something was coming and it frightened me to the point my teeth itched, but the day came and went without incident. I spent that night listening to every sound the house made when it settled, every creak in the floorboards, every rattling pipe. It was worse to know I was being watched, but from the shadows. The next morning I awoke alone in bed. It was a Sunday and we were both off, but my girlfriend would sometimes sleep until noon. It was 8:21 and she had already started her day. It wasn't completely out of the ordinary for her to be up early some days, but considering the circumstances, I think I would have felt better waking up beside her. I made my way downstairs to find her in her rocking chair watching out the window as people passed by. I began making coffee for the two of us when I began to hear whispers. I turned in a panic to find no one. The whispers continued out of the kitchen, and I followed them to the family room. My girlfriend was still facing the window, rocking back and forth. I returned to the kitchen only to fall back against the wall in shock as I noticed the torso of a woman lay bare beneath the kitchen table. They were coming out of hiding again. My girlfriend must have heard the commotion and came to help me up. At that moment, it felt like the best thing I could do was tell her everything, but something didn't feel right about it. I told her I lost my balance and we continued about our day. That evening we were watching television when I decided to run out to the kitchen to grab a snack. I ignored the whispering coming from the darkness of the bathroom and continued into the kitchen. I could feel the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. In my experience, this is something watching me. Letting my eyes adjust to the darkness, I scanned the room until I turned my attention above me. As I tilted my head back, I could see the hair hanging down just above my head. A woman with a bloated gray face staring back at me. I find it better to ignore them. Most spirits can be friendly, but some can become hostile if they feel threatened. I rummaged through the cabinet searching for a bag of chips all the while. I could feel her presence becoming more aggravated. My heart started racing and I grabbed the first thing I could reach and made my way back into the living room. As I entered the living room, I began to hear a buzzing from the television. It grew louder before the hairs on my neck stood up again. I could feel her behind me. I didn't want to turn around. It's always best to avoid turning around when they're that close. The light in the hallway flickered for a moment, and I couldn't feel her behind me anymore. I turned to verify, and when I turned back, I was met with a figure lurking from behind the television. All I could see was its eyes glaring in my girlfriend's direction. It began crawling out from behind the television. A small girl, as she made her way across the room and sat down beside my girlfriend. I waited for a moment before sitting back down. A visible gap between my girlfriend, this spirit, and myself. My girlfriend never mentioned it, and everything continued as normal until the little girl turned to my girlfriend and began whispering. My eyes shifted, my neck never moving, but I could feel an anger building as I continued to eavesdrop. I directed my gaze back towards the television, and the air became thin. The girl stood up and left the room. The rest of the night I was terrified to return to the kitchen or even leave the room. I didn't want to move, but I had to get some sleep. We shut the television off and made our way out of the room. I let my girlfriend lead, and as I left, I turned the corner expecting to see the little girl, but nothing. My girlfriend made her way up the stairs. The man normally waiting below wasn't there. I brushed against my shorts and realized I left my phone. I turned back and rounded the corner to be met by several eyes watching me from all corners of the room. I held my composure and raised my hand around the dark room. I could feel the eyes growing closer. My hand grazed over the screen and the backlight cut on. They were drawing closer on me. I turned tail and made my way out as fast as possible. I don't know if they were hostile, but I'd never dealt with this before.